All right. Thanks everyone for having me. I'm Hannah Gruber. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is August 14th of 2018. I have a sponsor who has a sponsor, and I have the privilege of sponsoring other women. I have a home group. It is the Way of Life group that meets in downtown Raleigh on Monday nights at 8 p.m. If you're ever in the area, we would love to have you. And I am a part of several service committees as a part of AA. And I say all that to qualify myself, and also because those are things I need to do and need to keep so that I can keep this gift of sobriety. I haven't told a 40-minute story in a while, so we're just going to see what happens. Going back to my childhood, there's not really a lot to look at there in terms of my story, because my childhood proves to me that I'm not an alcoholic because of something that happened in my life or circumstances that I was a part of. I'm an alcoholic because when I start to drink, I have no control over how much I take. And when I try and stay stopped on my own willpower, I cannot. I had two loving parents who, to this day, I have never seen really fight. Two younger siblings, and we got along as well as siblings can. I had everything I needed, most of what I wanted. I had a very good family life, pretty exceptional. I was loved and supported and accepted. But that was not my internal experience. Internally, I felt like I didn't belong. I felt like I didn't deserve my parents' love. I felt like there was something wrong with me that I couldn't put my finger on. And today I know that to be alcoholism because I react abnormally to life. I cannot handle life on life's terms. And so, I would get friends, and I was convinced they all hated me. Because I had this idea that I was this bad person and nothing could shatter that. It didn't matter what feedback I got. I would go to school and put on different masks because I felt like if you saw who I really was, you wouldn't like what you see. So I'm going to talk like you, dress like you, act like you, try and be like you so that you would accept me. And I'd come home at the end of the day, strip off those masks, and just be miserably depressed. So, from a young age, I knew what depression was. I knew what self-hatred was. And I knew that something was wrong with me, and I didn't have that missing piece. I felt like everyone had a guidebook to life, and I just somehow missed that part. Fast forward a little bit, I was in late middle school, early high school, and I started to have some serious mental health problems. And I talk about those because I see them as a part of my alcoholism in the way that AA has given me a solution to those things too. What happened was, by the time I was 16, I was hospitalized for an eating disorder for 3 months and had tried to kill myself 4 separate times. I'm really bad at that. And thank God for that. But it wasn't until years later that I came and saw the first step. The idea that my life was unmanageable, I knew that. That was common knowledge for me. My internal world was always unmanageable. I could not handle life. This was all before I discovered alcohol. I was a late bloomer in that sense. I was 16 when I had my first drink, and I wasn't really friends with drinkers. All my friends were the nerdy jock type people, so drinking wasn't really a thing they did. And one night they were like, we're gonna have alcohol. And I was like, I will be there. Because my family are normal drinkers. A little boring, actually. In childhood, they'd have 1 beer once a week, and I'd be like, what's the point of that? No one in my immediate or extended family is an alcoholic. So I was never really around much drinking, but I saw movies, and it always looked fun, and I heard stories, and I wanted to be a part of life. So even before I took that first drink, I saw alcohol as being a way that I could be a part of life. And I remember that first night, we had a bottle of peppermint schnapps, a bottle of Kahlua, and like half a dozen warm beers. And everyone started passing those bottles around, taking tiny little sips and saying, "Ew, this is so gross," because it was. But when I took that first sip, something happened in me that did not happen in my friends, because I took that sip and I didn't taste it, I just felt it. I felt that warmth going down my throat into my stomach. And it was like I had been holding my breath all my life and I could finally breathe. In that instant, I had relief from what I viewed as everything wrong with me in the world. I felt funny, I felt smart, I felt pretty. I felt like I belonged, and that's what I was chasing. And in that moment, I pretty cognitively made the decision that this was my solution. Because at this point, the therapy wasn't working, the medication wasn't working, but I took that first sip of alcohol, and alcohol worked. And what that night looked like was me stealing the bottle of peppermint schnapps, running around the house, hiding from my friends, and having it taken off me when they realized I drank pretty much the whole thing by myself. And that's pretty much par for the course. That's my drinking in a nutshell. I'm not drinking to be social. I'm not drinking to fit in. I'm drinking because it takes me away from all the mess that is life, and I feel relief. And I, right away, started being a solo drinker because my friends not drinking was not going to prevent me from getting my solution. I realized my parents only drank the beer in the house. Everything else was for, social events, so that was fair game in my book. And so it became a normal thing. Me, 16, 17 years old, coming home from school after a day of just wanting to die and very dramatic. Waiting for everyone to go to bed so I could go and get a few swigs of all the different liquors and just have that time to breathe. That kind of drinking alone streak ended because I was babysitting my youngest sibling one night, and I decided I was going to make my first mixed drink. Because that's what adults did. So I had a cup about this big, and I filled it up to about there with vodka. And then the rest was Coca-Cola, because I thought, that's probably a good ratio. And I drank it in 10 minutes. Apparently I went in the bath, which I don't know. But I woke up in hospital at 2 a.m. being pumped full of fluids, because I had gotten alcohol poisoning. It never occurred to me that the drinking was what was wrong in that situation. I was embarrassed that I got caught. And I went to school at 8 a.m. as if nothing happened, because in my eyes, I hadn't done anything wrong. I'd gotten caught, and that was the mistake. And I truly believe that was the last point in my drinking where I had the ability to stop on my own for a period of time. It was soon after, when I started drinking again, that drinking was no longer a choice for me. So I stayed away from alcohol for a good 6 months, but I was already planning my drinking. I was just waiting because college was coming. So I was like, I'll not drink for a few months. It'll be fine. Get my parents good and happy with me. They'll be off my back. And I went to college in Florida, and I don't know if you've heard a lot of stories from people in AA, but just count how many people's stories involve Florida. I have a theory that it's where a lot of us go to get good and messed up, and that's what I did. So, I'm pretty introverted and socially awkward, so I got to school, and it took me a week to find a friend. And I wasn't going to go out alone, right? I wasn't going to be that girl just going out and partying alone. So I roped in a friend, and I was like, we're going to drink. So we went to this house, and they had a giant Rubbermaid full of God knows what, and there was bugs and hair in it. And I saw it, and I said, great. And immediately started drinking it because that relief I was waiting for was there. despite the bugs in the hair and whatever, that relief was there. And so I drank, and they ran out of alcohol, so I went to the next house and drank until they ran out of alcohol. And my poor friend at this point, she's not one of us, and she's like, I think we should leave. And I told her, no, I'm good. You can go. And I don't remember what happened after that, but I woke up with a stranger somewhere I had never been before. And there were bruises on me, and my shirt and my shoes were missing. And I got myself together, started walking back to campus, and my first thought was, I can't wait to do that again. At this point, a rational, normally functioning individual would say, wow, that was pretty dangerous. Maybe I should be a little more careful. But from what I could see, I drank, which was the goal, and I didn't remember anything else, so it couldn't have been that bad. And so that's what I want to do. And that's what I did. It took me a week of being in college to become a daily drinker. And it was no longer an option at that point. It was a necessity. And I used the excuse, this is what college kids do. It's not. I would show up to my friend's dorm room on a Tuesday night at 5 p.m. with a handle of vodka and be like, who's drinking? They'd all say, we're good. And I'd say, great, more for me, and proceed to get trashed in their bed. Because that's the kind of drinker I am. I roped a boyfriend in because he was old enough to get alcohol, which was key. And he decided I probably drank too much, so maybe I should switch to leafy green alcohol. And I said, I have a better idea. I'll do both. And I did. And somehow, for the first year, I managed to keep up good grades. Even though I was going to class drunk, I was leaving class to fill up my water bottle with vodka and going back to class. I was not looking out for my own safety. And, it got to a point in the middle of my third semester where I would wake up with crippling panic attacks. I didn't get jitters, but I got so panicked that I could not get out of bed until I had a couple of glasses of wine. And that was just to start my day. So I took a medical leave from school. And I was convinced it was my depression and my anxiety. Not once did the thought occur to me it might be the alcohol, because the alcohol had been my solution for so long. That was all I knew that made me not want to die all the time, but it had stopped working. I didn't know anything of alcoholism, so I didn't know that alcohol did stop working for some people. And so I came home, and my parents were not about to co-sign me doing everything I wanted to do. And so I was like, all right, well, I guess this is it. And I tried to kill myself again, because that's what I do. And again, really bad at that. Ended up in a good old Duke psych ward. And I detoxed there. And no one knew I was detoxing, because I didn't think I needed to tell anyone how much I was drinking, because that's irrelevant. And, after about 4 days of me thinking that the doctors were, trying to kill me, I kind of had a moment of clarity. I had this quiet and this peace, and it clicked that I kind of feel better than I did when I was drinking all the time. And I haven't drank in, a week now. Maybe there's something to that. And it was suggested I go to an IOP program, which is intensive outpatient, if you do not already know. And I didn't like it. I really didn't. People, I was in the young people's one too, because I was 19, so there were 16, 17-year-olds in there talking about drugs, and I was like, that's not me. I just didn't think I belonged. I was like, I'm not like you guys. I'm not that bad. I just need to not drink for a few months and get my life together, and then I'll be fine. I have to get my mental health in order, and then I'll be good. And, me being an alcoholic, even though I'm not drinking, if I don't have a solution, I am terrible. Because I managed to convince the director of the IOP program that he had wronged me, got him to make amends to me, and then promptly left the program because I just didn't want to be there. But the good thing that came out of that experience was I was introduced to AA. All I knew about AA was like what I had seen in The Simpsons, where it's like a bunch of old men talking about like their wives and their kids and just being miserable. So I was pretty sure I didn't belong. But my parents were excited at the idea of me trying AA, and I just really wanted them off my back. So I went, and I walked in, and I was kind of confused because it was a lot of people, mostly older than me. I was 19 at the time, and most of them had drank longer than I'd been alive. Some had been sober longer than I'd been alive, and they were happy as well. And that's what I couldn't quite make sense of. So my reaction to that was like, these people are a cult. They're drinking the Kool-Aid because like there's no way they could have stories like mine and be happy. And it was really because I couldn't remember the last time I had genuinely been happy. So I sat down and I was pretty content because I figured I didn't belong at this point, but I would stay for the meeting to be respectful. And I was horrified because people started sharing and I heard my story. They shared about the hopelessness and the misery and the despair that crippled them daily. And that's where I was, because I didn't know how to run my life. I didn't know how to fix what was wrong with me. I didn't really know what was wrong with me. And the crazy thing was these people said they got better. I hadn't ever considered that getting better was a real option, because at this point, like, I've tried therapy and medication, I've tried treatment, I've tried all these things, and I can't seem to get to a place where I am stable and happy. But people said this program did that for them. And I left that meeting, and I didn't really think I was an alcoholic. I didn't think I needed to be an AA. But that group of people really struck home with me. So I went back, because these people told me to keep coming back, and no one had said those words to me in a long time. And I believed them. And, I saw the steps, and I had a big grudge against the God word. I thought I was too smart. I thought if there is a God, he doesn't want anything to do with me because he hasn't helped me. I thought, it's cute if it works for you, but you're probably just a little naive. So I looked at those steps and I said, well, can't do that one, can't do that one. Well, I could do that one, and put together my own program, because I was going to show AA how to do it better. And, I started going to meetings, and quickly I decided I wanted to belong with the people in AA, because I had always felt so different, and these people seemed to understand the dark part of me that no one had ever understood before, and that appealed to me. So I started to kind of pretend. I got a sponsor, and didn't listen to her. We read the book, and I didn't do any of the things that the book tells us to do. And then I was confused when I got drunk. So I blamed the sponsor, and then I moved on to the next one, and the cycle just repeated itself. And over time, a weird thing happened, because I saw the people who I had initially come with stick. And I had started to see change in them and in their lives. And I started to see miracles happen for them. And I was confused, because I was like, why is that not happening for me? The truth was, I wasn't really working a program. I was showing up, I was socializing, going out to dinner, I wasn't working the steps. I wasn't calling my sponsor. I wasn't doing any of the actions that the program asks us to do. So I wasn't getting the results. And so that's what happened. I would get a few months or a few weeks here or there, and I'd relapse. And each time the relapse was worse, and it was worse faster. Because I'm sure you've heard someone say, like, when you come around AA, it ruins drinking if you're an alcoholic, right? Because by like the third or the fourth relapse, I was like, oh, these people were right. Maybe I am one of them. But I still was hung up with the spiritual side of the program. I felt like it just didn't work for me. I remember I went to a meeting and I shared about how, I was so glad that AA worked for you guys, and, it's just different for me because I have these mental health problems, and, I felt like it was a really good share. I felt like it was moving, and a man came up to me after the meeting who I had grown to really respect, and he just looked at me and said, "You need to stop being terminally unique." And I never went back to that meeting. I was so appalled that he would say something like that to me. But really, he was right, because I was still trying to find those little pieces that I was different, instead of looking at the vast amount of information that I was the same. And the beginning of the end for me was I had 4 months sober, and I found a man. He was a year and a half sober. He had sponsees, had a sponsor. I was like, he's doing the thing. He'll keep me sober. Things started to get bad, so I had the idea, I'll drink and he'll break up with me. And he had the idea, well, I'll just drink too. That was the start of the end for me. In that relationship, I was introduced to more substances that I found I really liked. And it got to a point where he was using me, I was using him for the substances. Like, things were bad fast, and I didn't know how to get out of it. I didn't believe I had that power in me. And one night, after about a month of his cocaine psychosis, I thought he was going to kill me. Or I was going to kill myself, whatever happened first, but something bad was going to happen. And a little voice in me said, call someone. And I did. To this day, that was not me who called. I had a number of a woman in AA who had really tried to help me and take me under her wing, and I called her. And I didn't really believe anything would come of it, but sure enough, about 20 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. And she was there, and she had brought other people in AA. And when he wouldn't leave, they called the cops for me. When he was gone, they got new locks with me and changed my locks for me and took me in for the night. And I couldn't understand why this woman who didn't really know anything about me would do this for me. Today I know that that's what we do for the sick and suffering alcoholic. I would love to tell you that that was my last drink and that I got sober and my life changed. But at that point, I was hopeless. I was miserable. I was scared of drinking and drugging, but I was more scared of not drinking and drugging. And just those last 6 months were awful. So I started to, I had heard when I came in that we all have yets. And that's the idea that, someone else's story that has bigger, badder things than ours, or so we think, those are yets for the alcoholic who hasn't reached those lengths. And I started to cross off a lot of those yets with substances I had never done before, with going to lengths to get what I needed that I had never done before, going to dangerous places with dangerous people. Those yets were getting crossed off. And I was 100% hopeless. I was 100% miserable, and I knew what the book said. And the book said we had two options One was to go into the bitter end, blotting out the intolerable nature of our condition as best we can, and the other to accept spiritual help. And I didn't feel I was capable of accepting spiritual help. And I was done trying to kill myself because I knew I was bad at it at this point, and I figured the alcohol would catch up eventually. This whole period, I was working as a nanny. I was showing up to work drunk. I was doing substances while on the job, and this family really trusted me, but that didn't matter because I was sick. And what it looks like was I got off work on a Tuesday night, drove to the bar and slammed 6 shots of vodka like I did every night, and went back home to finish off what I had. And that was 8 p.m. on a Tuesday, and I was told later that they found me at 8 a.m. on Monday, and it was because my mom had a funny tummy feeling. If she hadn't thought to check up on me, I would not be here. I was told when they found me, my heart was at 20%, and they told my parents I wasn't going to make it. And when I started to pull through, the doctors were pretty sure I was going to be a vegetable and not be able to speak or do anything for myself for the rest of my life. And that didn't happen. What happened was Thursday night I came to in the hospital, and I had a spiritual experience. My idea of a power greater than myself was drastically revised. Because I came to, and all I could see was white. And I had this deep peace and comfort in myself because for the first time I knew and believed I was an alcoholic and I was going to die from this disease. But I had peace because for the first time I believed AA would work for me. It was the one thing I hadn't tried. And I was out of ideas. But for the first time I believed that it was going to work if I just did the work. And so I did. I got out of the hospital on a Monday night and showed up on Tuesday morning to the 9 a.m. mid-meditation meeting where I would frequently do blow during the meeting, share, and pick up dirty chips at. So they were very happy to see me get a white chip. And I went around the room and asked every single woman I could find if they would be my sponsor until one of them said yes. Because I was desperate. I wanted this. And I knew I needed it as fast as I could get it. And so eventually a woman said yes, and I started working with her. And I started praying immediately. I didn't know what I was praying to. I knew there was something at this point because there's so many things I should not have survived in my story, and here I am. So I started praying. I didn't really feel a connection, but I was doing it because that's what people did, and that's what was suggested. And I believed it worked for them. And that was all I needed. And this woman decided to take me through the steps in a workbook because I had worked the steps before, even though I was drinking in the intermissions. We went through the steps and we went through them fast. But I was not thorough and honest. I was terrified. I was scared. I thought there were things in my story that I could not be accepted for. I'm very fortunate I stayed sober through not being thorough and honest right away. The way we worked the program wasn't enough for me, and I didn't realize it then. Because I was going to meetings, I was working with others, I was, being of service, and I was getting something from it. But it kind of came full circle when my grandfather passed away very unexpectedly when I had 9 months sober. It was a big shock, and I was heartbroken. I was gutted, and I realized I needed the solution the way it was intended. I realized, I still have good relations with that first sponsor, but in that moment I knew I needed someone who worked the program through the book, who was of service, who had a home group and service positions, and had a network of women. And I knew exactly who to go to. And it was funny because this woman had actually sponsored me before in one of my several weeks sober episodes. And so I went up to her and I was like, look, I know you sponsored me before. I wasn't ready, and I'm so sorry that I relapsed, and, it's different this time. And she just looked me dead in the eyes and said, I sponsored you? And I was like, yeah, she's the one. She's the one. And, I got to work. And with the loss of my grandpa, it was a hard but beautiful experience. Because for the first time, something went wrong in my family life, and it wasn't about what's Hannah going to do to make it worse. Because that's always how it was. And I got to show up and be there for my grandma and my family. I got to be the daughter, the granddaughter, the sister that I had never really been. I got into the book, and I started working the steps through the book, and all of a sudden, that connection to something bigger than myself started to grow. Because in working the steps with a sponsor through the big book, reading it word for word, I started to get an idea. And I started to see, faith in the program that has saved so many lives. And I started to see that I can be a part of that too, and I am a part of that if I choose to be. Steps 1, 2, and 3 were... By the time I was going through it with my sponsor this time around, I was pretty sold. I knew, and I still believe today, I don't have another recovery in me. This is it. Step 1, check. I'm an alcoholic. My life is unmanageable. Done. We're good. And step 2, by the time I was working on it with my sponsor, she explained to me that I only needed to believe that she believed, and that belief worked for her. And I could get down with that because, I didn't have to commit to anything, because as an alcoholic, I get very scared of committing to things. Step 3, it was put to me, it's about turning my thoughts and my actions over, because I didn't know what will in life meant. That sounded really wordy, and I needed a sponsor who could take it down a few notches for me. And, we said the prayer, and we just said, are you ready to continue? And I was, and we moved forward. With my sponsor doing step 4, I wrote it all down. I went back to early childhood and wrote her a book of all my resentments. And we sat down for a 5th step, and when I admitted those things that I'd been keeping to myself, that I was terrified to tell another living person, she chuckled and said, me too. And I was shocked, because, here's this woman who did and went through the same things I did and went through, and I realized I didn't think any differently of her by knowing that about her. And she emphasized she didn't think differently of me. And that was when I really got the concept that our past is our greatest asset. But going through steps 4 and 5 thoroughly and honestly changed my life, because I realized through doing those thoroughly that those things that weighed me down for years and kept me prisoner because I wouldn't share them, those are the things that I can be uniquely qualified to help another alcoholic with if they've been through those circumstances. And I've been able to do that for people. Steps 6 and 7, there was no way to learn what my defects were until I did a thorough 4th and 5th. And by that time, I had grown that relationship with something bigger than myself. And I had started not just to believe in something, but to rely on something, because I had faith that if I took the actions in AA, I would get the results. And that reliance and that faith was able to guide me to turn over the things that, were objectionable in my inventory. And, 8 and 9, those were fun. So the ones that I thought were going to be really, really hard went pretty smoothly, and then the ones I thought were going to be really, really easy were not. But through making those amends and doing so earnestly, I revitalized relationships. I got to show, my family that I am responsible, and I take that responsibility for my actions in the past. And I am trying to make them right. And how can I do that? With friends, being able to recognize, I was a tornado in your life. And what can I do so that we can heal if that is what you choose? I hear talk of living amends, and, my sponsor and I kind of chuckle at that, because for me, showing up and being a daughter is what I was supposed to be doing all along. It's not so much that I'm amending things through my actions, it's that I'm living with the purpose that I was intended to have. And that's a huge blessing in my life today. Then step 10, 11, and 12, those are where I try to live. I mean, going through the day, it is rare that I have a day where, I get to the end and I'm like, that was so easy. Because, life shows up, but I've realized it is easy in the sense that I can get through what life throws at me now. Because I can choose at any moment in the day to turn it all over and start my day over. The book is really good about offering me prayers for all sorts of occasions that I need, and simply taking note of those prayers and going back to them and saying the sick man's prayer and the fear prayer throughout the day when those things crop up gives me relief in the moment. I don't have to hold those until the end of the day or until I do my next fourth step. I don't need to do that. And step 11 is kind of my soft spot in the steps, because that was the one when I first came in, I was like, never, I'm never doing that. Because, I was scared of the concept of something else being out there that wants to love and protect me and keep me safe. I've found that growing in prayer is something I have to work on constantly. In the times that I've gotten down and said the same prayers and the same rituals, those are the times I get stuck. Those are the times that little things start to build for me. I've started doing intentional prayer, praying for the occasion, changing up my prayers as the days come and go, because, I have to continue to seek. If I ever stop continuing to seek, I'm in danger of another drink. And step 12 has been just the turning point of my sobriety. Being able to work one-on-one with another woman and take them through the steps is the bright spot of my life. And I cannot emphasize that enough. And, when I was first starting to sponsor, I told my sponsor, I was like, I'm not qualified for this. I'm going to get them drunk. And, thanks to her patience and guidance, I was just instructed, do what I did for you. Just do that. Did that work for you? Then it'll work for them. And I've seen that to be true. And, my life today is one that I could never imagine, because I came in when I was ready and I was desperate and I knew it would work. I still thought the best I could do was not drink and not make things worse. That would have been a great deal. I would have taken that in an instant. And what I have instead is a life that continues to build to more freedom and more peace and more happiness than I thought was possible. Because I genuinely didn't know if I could ever be happy. I didn't know if I could ever look in the mirror and like what I saw. I didn't know if I'd be able to, be proud of myself. And today I have all those things. Today I think I'm a pretty cool person, and for the amount of times I try to kill myself, that's pretty good. Recently, let me go back. So I got out of the hospital that Monday in 2018, and 2 days later I had my first day back at a 4-year institution because I'd gotten in by some miracle. I could barely walk. I looked like the living dead. I mean, it was not pretty. My skin was yellow. And I was like, I'm going to school. And so I went for my first day, and I could barely walk, and I had to leave halfway through because I shouldn't have been there in the first place. But yesterday I graduated with a bachelor's degree. Like, these are things, like, I never thought was possible. I didn't think I'd be alive at this point. And not only am I alive, but I have a life greater than I ever could have dreamed of. And I also have faith that I can keep that. But keeping that has some requirements, and those requirements are to keep working with my sponsor and keep working the steps and being of service and working with others and doing my best to practice the principles in all my affairs. And I don't do that well every day, but I keep trying, and through that repeated effort and through trying to keep that honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness, I am given a life that I didn't think I would ever have. And, I'm grateful to be here tonight and to have shared with you guys, and really looking forward to some Mexican food. Thanks.